tomorrow morning, somewhere near you, a doctor is going to switch off a human being like a lamp. They will push a clear liquid into a vein, and in about 10 seconds, a whole person, every thought, every fear, the entire private universe behind their eyes will simply stop. Then, a few hours later, she will switch them back on. And here's the part that should bother you more than it does. If you ask that doctor how it actually works, how the off switch works, the honest answer is nobody really knows. We do it to 40,000 people a day in this country alone, and we cannot fully explain it. That is not a mistake in the system. That is the system. Your brain is the most studied object in the known universe, and it is still absolutely full of holes. We tend to assume the big mysteries are all out there, in black holes in the bottom of the ocean and the edge of the universe. But the strangest unexplained thing in existence is not light years away. It is sitting inside your skull right now reading this sentence, and it does not understand itself. So today we are counting down 7 things your brain does every single day that the smartest people alive still cannot explain. We are going from strange to unsettling to a final one that might be the single biggest unanswered question in all of science. Number 7 is playing in someone's head right now against their will. Think of a song that got stuck in your head this week. You did not choose it. It just started playing on a loop in a voice that is somehow yours and not yours at the same time. Scientists have a wonderfully clinical name for this: involuntary musical imagery. And they actually know a lot about the triggers. It is usually a song you heard recently or one tied to a memory, and it tends to be simple, repetitive, with an easy rise and fall, which is exactly why pop choruses are engineered the way they are. But here's the mystery that no one has cracked. Nobody knows why the brain loops it. Every other kind of memory you have to reach for. But this one reaches for you and will not let go. Studies have found that around 90% of people get earworms at least once a week. And the current best trick for getting rid of one is, I promise this is real, chewing gum. The theory is that the same brain machinery you use to imagine a melody is partly the machinery you use to chew, and you cannot fully do both at once. So somewhere in your head is a tiny brain holding a stick of gum, fighting a song it never asked to hear. We have mapped the trigger, but the off switch is still a guess. Number 6 is happening to some of you at this exact moment, just from reading about it. I'm going to type one word, and I want you to notice what your body does. Yawn. For a lot of you, that was enough. Not the sight of someone yawning, not the sound, just the idea of it, and your jaw started to go. Contagious yawning is one of the strangest little glitches in the whole system. It seems to be tied to empathy, to how much your brain automatically syncs up with other people. Here is the eerie proof. People who score higher on tests for empathy catch yawns more easily, and people diagnosed as psychopaths, who are defined partly by a lack of empathy, are noticeably harder to infect. Your dog does it too, and catches yawns from you. Specifically, it's human more than from strangers. Small children under about 4 do not catch them at all. Right around the age their empathy is still switching on. But step back, and the real question appears, what is any of this for? Why would evolution wire your yawn to another person's yawn in the first place? The leading guess is that it helped early human groups sync their alertness, all winding down together, all waking up together. But that is a story we tell after the fact, not something anyone has proven. So the tiny brain in your head just yawned, looked around to see who did it first, and found no one. Number 5 is the feeling that you have read this exact sentence before. You walk into a room you have never been in, and suddenly, bone deep, you are certain you have stood in this exact spot before. Deja vu French for already seen, somewhere between 60 and 70% of people report having felt it. And for most of history, it got explained with past lives, premonitions, glitches, and the simulation. But the current science is somehow stranger than any of that. The leading theory is that deja vu is not a memory error at all. It is your brain catching a memory error in real time. Here is the idea. 2 systems in your brain are supposed to work together. One that recognizes familiarity, and one that actually retrieves the specific memory. Normally they agree, but every now and then the familiarity system fires by mistake, screaming this is familiar, while the retrieval system comes back with nothing. And deja vu might be the feeling of your brain noticing that mismatch and flagging it, which means the creepy part is actually the healthy part. Studies suggest younger people get it more, and it fades with age, possibly because that internal fact checker gets slower over time. So the tiny brain in your head is not remembering the future. It is quality control, catching itself in a lie, and the shiver you feel is the alarm going off. Number 4 is a lie. Your body believes so hard that it becomes true. Give a person a sugar pill. Tell them it is powerful medicine, and a measurable number of them will actually get better. Not feel better, get better. Real, physical changes, lower blood pressure, reduced inflammation, the brain releasing its own painkillers on command. This is the placebo effect, and it is not a rounding error. It is so strong that every real drug has to beat it in a trial just to prove it works at all. But here's where it stops being a curiosity and starts being genuinely bizarre. It still works, even when people know it is a placebo. In one set of studies, doctors handed patients a bottle openly labeled placebo pills, told them flat out these are sugar, no active ingredient, and their symptoms still improved. Somehow, the ritual of taking the pill, the act of being cared for, is enough to move the body even when the mind is fully in on the trick. There is even an evil twin called the nocebo effect, where expecting harm creates real harm, where believing a side effect will hurt you can make it appear. So the tiny brain in your head is a pharmacist, mixing real drugs out of pure belief, and it will do it even after you tell it the prescription is fake. We can measure the effect precisely. We still cannot fully explain how expectation reaches down and rewrites the body. Number 3, eats 2 hours of your life every single night, and you do not remember a second of it. Every night, for roughly 2 hours, you hallucinate. Fully, vividly, sometimes terrifyingly. And then you wake up and forget almost all of it. We have known the mechanics of dreaming for decades. We can watch it happen on a brain scan. We know which stage of sleep it lives in. We can even wake someone the instant it starts. What we cannot agree on is the one question a child would ask first. Why? Why do we do this at all? One camp says dreams are for processing emotion, a kind of overnight therapy that files away the day's fear and stress. Another says they are for memory, the brain replaying and sorting what mattered, deleting what did not. Another says dreams are basically meaningless, just random static from a sleeping brainstem. And your mind stitches a story over the noise, because that is what it does. And here's the humbling part. Every one of those theories has real evidence, and every one of them has holes the others drive straight through. We are the only species we can actually ask, and even we come back with a shrug. So the tiny brain in your head directs a 2-hour movie every night, refuses to explain the plot, and deletes the footage before you wake up. You spend around 6 years of your life dreaming. Nobody can tell you for certain what a single one is for. Number 2 is the off switch from the very start of this video, and it is more unsettling up close. Remember the doctor and the lamp? Here is what makes general anesthesia so much stranger than sleep. When you sleep, you're still in there. You can be woken, you dream, your brain is humming along in its own night shift. Under deep anesthesia, you're gone. No dreams, no sense of time, no you. Hours pass in a single black instant, and you rejoin the world with a gap where a piece of your life should be. We have been doing this since the 1840s, and for most of that time, the honest medical position has been that we know these drugs switch consciousness off, but not really how. We are only recently starting to map it. The way anesthesia seems to break the brain's ability to talk to itself, cutting the lines between regions so the signals cannot combine into a single experience. But that is a description of what happens, not an explanation of why it erases the feeling of being alive. Because sitting right underneath this is the question no drug can answer. What exactly is being switched off? So the tiny brain in your head has an off switch. We press it 40,000 times a day, and not one of us can say what turns off when we do, which brings us to number 1. Everything on this list has been strange. This last one is the reason the whole list is even possible. And it is the biggest unanswered question in all of science. Right now, there's something it is like to be you. There is a taste to your morning coffee, a specific red to a sunset, a feeling of reading these words that is happening to someone, and that someone is you. That is consciousness. And it is the single most obvious fact of your entire existence. You know it more directly than you know anything else in the universe. And science cannot explain it at all. Here is the problem, and philosophers call it the hard problem. We can trace every step of how the brain works as a machine. Light hits your eye, signals fire, neurons pass chemicals, patterns move through tissue. Every bit of it is physical, electrical, chemical, in principle, fully mappable. So why is any of it accompanied by an experience? Why is there something it feels like to be that machine instead of nothing at all? A calculator processes information, and we assume the lights are off inside. Your brain processes information, and somehow the lights are on. Nobody, not one neuroscientist or philosopher alive, can tell you why. We do not even have an agreed theory for how you would build a conscious thing, or how you would ever test whether something else, an animal, a machine, another person, truly has an inner world, or is just a very convincing dark house. So the tiny brain in your head is the one thing in all of existence that can ask what it is? And the answer it keeps coming back with is, I have no idea. So here's where that leaves us. 7 things: a song loop, a stolen yawn, a false memory, a healing lie, a nightly hallucination, an off switch, and the light of being awake. All of them running inside your head today. None of them fully explained, and I think that is strangely wonderful. We built telescopes to see the edge of the universe, and the deepest unexplored territory turned out to be the thing doing the looking. The most mysterious object in existence is not out there. It is the 3 pounds of tissue you're using to feel puzzled right now. If the idea that your own brain is quietly bending your reality gets to you, go back and watch why you replay conversations in your head. Because that is the same organ protecting you from a threat that ended years ago. And next time, we are staying with sleep, but going somewhere specific and genuinely strange. For most of human history, people did not sleep through the night on purpose. They slept in 2 shifts and woke up in the middle on purpose, for hours. We will get into what they did in that gap, and why we quietly forgot we ever slept that way. Until then, be nice to the little brain. It is trying its best, and it has no idea how it works.